can you give us a brief overview of Epic Charter School?
Sure. So Epic is an Oklahoma school. It's state funded. It's a public school. I call myself a homeschooler. I call my kids homeschoolers, but technically we are doing public school at home. So we are still held to some state standards. We still have requirements through our school. We have a teacher that we meet with usually anywhere from once a week to once every 3 weeks is typical. So it's not someone who sits down and teaches my child. It is maybe more of a facilitator or more of someone who's here to make sure we have the information we need to be successful. We have a resource if we have questions, and they guide us through the process of our school year.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth and I have my friend Beth with me today. We're coming to you from Altus, Oklahoma. Beth will be sharing about her experience as a homeschool mom with Epic Charter School today. I will be asking her the same frequently asked questions that I discussed in my traditional homeschooling video previous to this one. So Beth, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about this. Our family really loves Epic, so I love to tell people about it.
Beth, can you start by telling us how long you've been homeschooling and what brought you to the decision to use Epic?
Sure. So we just finished our second year homeschooling. Actually, my kids were enrolled in public school for years. My son finished 8th grade in a public school. My daughter finished 3rd grade. And I actually was a public school teacher up until 2 years ago. And the decision really, there were a lot of factors involved. We honestly were at a really great school. My kids had a really good education. There were just some things going on that we just felt called to change plans. So class sizes in public school were a big thing for us. Our kids were in classes of 30 plus, and we just decided that was one of the many reasons we thought, if we chose to bring them home and school them at home, they would have an opportunity to get some more individualized attention. We could focus more on what they need to learn specifically.
Okay, well let's get right to our frequently asked questions. The first one is there a recommended amount of time that you spend on each subject each day?
So it can depend on your student, the student's age, the student's grade. With Epic, you're going to be also discussing that with a teacher that you're assigned to, and that's going to determine that. So I would say most kids probably spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day, but that, like I said, that varies depending on a lot of different things, and each teacher you speak to might have a different idea.
Does that depend on grade?
Yes, absolutely. I think it can. So my high schooler typically spends more time than my elementary school age child daily.
So question number 2, how do you choose curriculum?
So one of the things that a lot of people really like about Epic is that they've got some suggestions and oversights. So they might have a wide variety of curriculum that you can look at. A lot of them are online. Not everything is online, but the popular choices and the vast majority of people choose online curriculum, and they might have demos. A lot of times some of these companies have demos, and you can go online and kind of check out what it looks like as a parent, what it looks like as a student, what their daily work might look like, and you get to kind of choose from there. Of course, I talked about Epic is state funded. It's technically a public school, so you're definitely going to be working on curriculum that meets state standards. So you might have a little less flexibility than you would in a traditional homeschool. I was just telling you, Elizabeth, about my daughter really she wants to be a dermatologist, and she wants to study anatomy this year, but as a 6th grader she also needs some earth science and some other things, so she's gonna have to incorporate more than just anatomy this year. Whereas if you're a traditional homeschooler, you have a little more flexibility. You can say, we're gonna do anatomy this year and next year we'll do earth science or whatever, but it works.
What is your best advice for a family just starting to homeschool?
So if a family is choosing the Epic route, I guess maybe this isn't advice, but it's something I always think that this is a great way if you're thinking about homeschool to kind of dip your toes on the water, because Epic has so many safeguards and so much guidance and support. If homeschooling is something you're thinking about but you're maybe scared to take the leap, I feel like this is a great way to start, because you can always do Epic for a year and realize, hey, I got this. I don't need the extra support. I can do it on my own, and you can move on and do more of a traditional homeschooling or something that works better for you. As far as advice, I would say just listen to your kids. Pay attention to your children and forget the numbers. Do what's best for them and do what's best for your family, and know that you'll always catch up. I think that's a big concern that a lot of Epic families have when they first start out. Oftentimes maybe the curriculum's not quite ready and you have to wait a couple days and they worry about getting behind. And if you're a family like us and you've come from public school, you often worry about that, but what you don't realize is how much extra time you have to say, that's okay, we have a day to make up. No big deal. We can spend an hour today and an hour tomorrow, and we might be done by then. It doesn't take much to catch back up when you need to. Good?
Sure.
Well, it's so true,
Yeah.
because sometimes if you enroll the week school starts,
Yeah.
you might not have your curriculum for 2 weeks. Or our first year, we didn't like the first curriculum, so we returned it and got another one, and we had to wait.
Okay, question number 5. What laws or protection does Epic Charter School provide for you?
So because Epic is public school, it's state funded, they follow all the laws in Oklahoma. So FERPA, which is your privacy law, that's all in effect. Your kids' privacy will always be protected. And as far as moving to a different state or anything like that, you basically follow what public school has. They're fully accredited, so your transcripts will transfer anywhere. You won't have trouble with college, that kind of stuff.
Now, Beth, I realize you are not a military family. However, you have moved in the middle of a school year.
Right.
How did Epic work for your family during that time?
So it worked out really well because our school is online at home, and at home we did not miss any learning time. We were able to maybe work a little ahead for a couple days, so that maybe we took a week to move and then we jumped right back into school. Being that we didn't leave the state, we didn't have to withdraw from Epic. We could stay with Epic. Of course, Epic is only in a couple states at the moment. If we were to move out of state, it would be like if you left a public school and were moving out of state. If you moved from Oklahoma to another state, leaving a public school, you would withdraw from that school, and when you enrolled in your new school, they would request your records, your child's records from Epic, and it would you just pick where you left off.
Okay, question number 7. If you've ever homeschooled anywhere else besides Altus, Oklahoma, or if you know anyone else who has homeschooled elsewhere, you know that homeschooling in Altus is very unique. Beth, what have you noticed in your experience of homeschooling in a bigger city in Oklahoma compared to Altus, Oklahoma? What differences have you noticed?
So our family moved to Altus from Oklahoma City, which is a really large area, and we had a lot of resources in Oklahoma City. What I found is that sometimes when you have a lot of resources, it's actually harder to plug in. So I was really actually very pleasantly surprised moving to Altus, because I was concerned about coming to a small town and feeling isolated, being one of maybe a handful of homeschoolers, even though technically we're in a public school, we just school at home. I was concerned about that isolation, and what I found was that Altus really has this great group of homeschool families who are really diverse. We all are very different in a lot of ways, but it's just a great group where we could easily plug in. My kids felt really comfortable very quickly, which when you have kind of introverted kids like mine, sometimes, or reserved children, can take some time. But my kids plugged in really quickly. I felt very welcome by the community. I also felt like we have a lot of really great activities for our children. Being able to do PE, maybe sometimes getting together to roller skate. There are some art classes in town. There's a homeschool band. I felt like it was really easy to find things to keep us busy and to find people to help us along this journey, being that we were so new to homeschooling when we moved here.
And lastly, number 8, Beth, can you share with us what is great about using Epic, and what are some things that are sometimes hard about the program?
Sure. A lot of it depends on what your family needs and what you're looking for. So homeschoolers often are looking for a lot of flexibility, maybe little oversight from anyone else. And those might be some things that homeschool families are not interested in when it comes to EPIC, because you're not going to have a rigorous schedule, but you're going to have maybe a weekly schedule of activities your child should complete. And you're going to have a teacher who oversees that. Also, because it's state funded, you'll definitely have benchmark testing that you need to make. Basically, EPIC needs to make sure your child is on track. EPIC has to make sure that each child is on track because the state requires that in order to fund them. So parents may or may not really like that oversight. For my family, I kind of like having a teacher who can kind of have my back, if that makes sense. Who I can say, my child has a question about what I think something's due Friday, and they say, no, I have more time. I can say, well, let's ask your teacher. I've got someone who can help hold me accountable for what my children are learning and also help hold my kids accountable. As far as the structure, again, that could be a negative. Some families might want a little more freedom to say, well, today we have this going on, so maybe we'll do that tomorrow. EPIC's can have a little bit more structure as far as you may have to turn in a certain number of assignments a week. So there's some give and take. Probably the number one benefit to EPIC is that because it's state funded, each public school has a certain amount of money that is spent per child. EPIC is no different. Your student gets what's called a learning fund. It's not, you never receive funds from EPIC. But what I can do is say, I like this activity and I'm going to request it, and I'm going to say to EPIC, hey, I would love to get this for my child. And if it's approved, EPIC will pay for things like, EPIC will pay for things like extracurricular activities. They may pay for band or gymnastics or art classes. I'd really like these supplies I'd like to teach my daughter art, and I would really like these supplies. They'll pay for things like that. They will also pay for driver's training or the ACT, also the SAT. So you have a fund that helps make it affordable. So going to have financial backing to help you pay for your child's education. Okay, so one more negative I would say for EPIC is you still have what I like to call hoops to jump through. So I think I mentioned benchmark testing. So there will be testing. Your teacher will want to see the growth your child is making throughout the year academically. Also, state testing is still something that's going to be mandatory in order to receive the funding. One more, I think, benefit of EPIC for people like me is I love the idea of having documentation, official documentation. So my high schooler has a high school transcript that when he applies for college will look no different than any other high school transcript at a public school.
All right, thanks guys, bye.
Bye.